going on, people? I feel like playing this song right now. Time is still going. Greetings, familia. Greetings. How is everybody? Pray that most of you are well. Pray that all of you are well. A lot to share on what I'm feeling today, and the aspect of war. Where did war start from? Where did it, hate in general? And we can even look at our animals. The animals, nature is a beautiful poetic, it has poetic scripture beyond any book, any physical book can teach you. When you pay attention to nature and the natural laws of being, it'll teach you things and it give you experiences. The most important part is definitely the experiences. The experiences is the main driver, because the experiences gives you wisdom. And what is wisdom? It's applied knowledge, if you want to put it like that, but it's applied being. A lot of people don't share the aspect of just being with the experiences and learning as much from it as possible. And that is where wisdom also stems from. So when you look at nature, what's that? Oh, I thought it was Gaijin. We got the 0-point energy generator going off like wildfire. But going back to natural law and just being in general, when you look at animals, and let's say a mother is giving birth, right? And you see a lion coming over. The lion will not eat the mother, will not eat a fresh deer, so to speak, coming right at the womb. They'll smell it. They'll smell that embryonic fluid, right? And it has a certain hormone to it that they can tell, like, hey, when I had my kid, that's what it smelled like. There's like a universal energetic information there when it comes to birth, right? And the innate nature of the most aggressive animal you could think of will not attack or not eat a freshborn. They just won't. It won't happen. What is that? It's like a reflective energy that we see in others. There's a universal code there. What is that? That's a power of just harmonizing with natural law. And that was a great example right there. So moving forward to today, going stemming from what I was saying with the birth energy, right? What festers into war? What festers into unnecessary violence? What festers in that? Where does it stem from? It stems from the mind. It stems from the mind. It stems from an illusionatory energetic resonance that it just feeds into the energetic aspect of just destruction, just pure destruction, no growth. What's the mind? Well, all is mind. All is mind. And what do I mean by that? Down to the chair you sit on, down to the tree you touch, down to the speck of dust in the air. It all stems from the mind. Like the universal aspect of energy, the universal being, if you want to call it that, or just nature itself. It's a breathing, animative being, and it also has consciousness. What is consciousness? We think of the mind, right? Well, our nature, the natural habitat that we live in also has a mind. And that's what I mean, that all is mind. No matter how you look at it, all is mind. And you may say something is inanimate, and the indigenous tribes, our forefathers, before even religion was even sprouted out to begin with, and all this dualistic thinking, so to speak, was festering. Everything is living, no matter how inanimate it is. Everything is vibrating back and forth. That consciousness is there. And you can say it's breathing. I personally think everything is breathing. What do I mean by that? Well, just like the inhale and exhale, that's contrast. If everything is moving back and forth, that's also contrast. So there it is. It is breathing back and forth. It has an inhale and an exhale. There is contrast in terms of the vibratory resonance, where nothing is truly solid. You may touch something and hit it as much as you can. You're still going through it in a sense. What do I mean by that? Well, your little specks of your DNA energetic resonance is left inside the phone. Even though you're not going penetrating through the glass, it's still on the glass, right? Your fingerprint, if you touch your phone, your fingerprint is still on there. And down to the microbial just echoes right into the actual phone. So nothing is truly stagnant. And when we think of war, when we think of how war festers, how that energy just came to be, it stems from the mind. It always goes back to the mind. Always goes back to the mind. All is mind. Hey, Bryant, or Ikar, brother, greetings. So a lot of people, when we grow up, they say that hate is taught. It's not really part of our nature. And I always love bringing back to that animal, down to the animals. When a newborn is birthed right out of the ether. If a lion is in the hunting mode and they go over there, they will not eat the newborn or the mother. And there's lots of videos out there that will show you they won't eat him. That embryonic fluid, that smell, when they smell it, especially on wolves, when they smell it too, it reminds them of when they had newborns. Because of that same embryonic fluid, that pee, if you want to call it urine, that fluid is all over. It's all over there. And if you watch, certain elders will tell you that some of them would plaster themselves with urine sometimes to move through certain dangerous spots, if you will, with certain animals. Certain animals to protect themselves and plaster their scent. So going back to current reality that we're seeing with war, so to speak, war, right? How many times do we have to go through this cycle to see that things of the nature of war? And you could read The Art of War. The Art of War will clearly tell you the most powerful being, or the winner, so to speak, is the one who doesn't even have to physically or lift a finger, so to speak, and it should be done in an instant. It's just like when two powerful fighters or beings, so to speak, come into contact with each other, and you see a lot of this in kung fu traditions, qigong traditions, where I stem from, the Bigu traditions, that you can look, masters can look at each other in the eye, and they know that, oh no, the battle is already lost at a certain point, just based off energy, right? And that also ties in the energy of peace. And what do I mean by that? There's a certain level of respect, in a sense, versus a level of disharmony. So there could be many reasons for war. Don't get me wrong. Let's be real here. There could be many reasons for war. Some people may look at Genghis Khan, for instance, as ruthless in a sense, but at the same time, even though he was ruthless, he took all the high, quote-unquote, spiritual masters from every culture that he was going to conquering and bringing it all together. Some people view that as a prosperous time, mainly towards the end, because it took a long time for people to finally realize that he's doing something a little bit different. He's not just going around, well, mind you, it was war. Let's be real here. That was war that he was doing. But towards the end, there was more of peaceful takeovers, if you will, in a sense. And you would think, moving to today, where we should dismantle some atomic machinery, if you will, at this point in time, right? And at least have talks and negotiations to the point where we wouldn't have, quote unquote, war. Or we should have been honestly got to the point where, like, we're all human, forget race, forget divisions. How can we magnify this human experience and blow past the mundane of this perpetual cycle over and over and over and over? Like, you would think many people at this point would finally see that there's more to life, right? Yeah, war never stopped war. But going back to the mind and just the energetic aspect of peace. Like, I was talking with my friend Jared that was just over here. I had a conversation with my dad, and he's building some stuff in Jamaica, right? And he owns this apartment complex in Jamaica. And I asked him, like, oh, do you have someone managing it? He's like, managing it? No, I don't have anyone managing it. Why do I need someone managing it? I'm like, oh, isn't it a lot? You have this property over there, you have that property over there. He's like, well, as long as you have a beautiful relationship with your tenants on a good side note, and be a good landlord and fix what you gotta fix, it's fine. And he also shared a story of, he had a friend who also owned his own apartment complex, and the friend strong-armed one of the tenants to leave instead of going the legal route, so to speak. So he paid a cop under the table and strong-armed a tenant out of the place. Now, mind you, my dad's friend, my dad was warning him, like, don't do that. And then all of a sudden, now the cop is saying that, hey, you owe me this, you owe me that, you owe me that, this and that. And now, to the point where that owner of the apartment, he doesn't feel safe going over there. He can't sleep at night. It's like a perpetual cycle of what you put out is what you get back. It's that simple, right? It's interesting because like attracts like in that term of energy, versus my dad who can sleep at night and not worry, and if the tenant isn't paying, so forth and so what, then just take him to court and do what you can at that point. At least you get to sleep at night. Mind you, the goal in everything you do, it should come from the intention of my peace, growing in health in general. That should be the intentional role. And like I was saying earlier, a couple lives ago, that we now live in a space and time where your intention is manifested at a faster rate more than ever at this point. People can feel that. And with the intention creates the vibratory resonance of the physical interactions you get at an all-time rate, because everything is speeding up in terms of information, in terms of communication, in terms of just being in general. Greetings. Yeah, and Einstein, or was it Einstein or someone was saying, what's the definition of insanity? Expecting to do the same thing over and over, trying to get the same result over and over, right? Now, I'm not here to point fingers, blame, this and that, but at the end of the day, if you're one person trying to take over a whole country, like you're one person trying to take over a country. And what is that really doing at the end of the day? If you don't have a community behind you doing these actions, and mind you, what we're seeing today, there's no real community. At the end of the day, no one really wants war. At the end of the day, no one wants war. Nobody wants war. No one really wants war. Now, just like in today's world, we see if someone is in the aspect of bullying and this and that, we can finally say that most of us would agree at this point that, hey, you're projecting trauma, you're projecting this, you're projecting that. Because we finally, as a collective at least, we're finally building more emotional intelligence, or more awareness of the emotional intelligence in that regard. So when you see things like what's happening now, what's really happening here? What's the deep underlying echo that is blasting through these actions? And I think it was in the UN a while ago, actually an hour ago, the Ukraine ambassador was like, you're he was like, here, Putin is on record saying this is war. Now, everyone here, and this was really beautiful, by the way. I might actually just share it on my feed. This is really beautiful. He said, so now everyone here, looking at all the countries, he's like, everyone here, let's do all that we can to just end this war. Boom. He wasn't like blasting anybody else at that point. He was just saying, what can we do to just end this right now? What can we do to just end it right now? Mind you, I almost became a soldier in the military at a certain point. And deep down, part of me was like, I can't hold a gun. I just can't. I respect gun holders, don't get me wrong. But personally, I just can't hold a gun. I'll never hold a gun. Even with certain video games, I couldn't do it. Couldn't play Call of Duty back then. Couldn't do any of that. And it's interesting with Japanese culture and the sword. Now the sword one would say that's really the extension of the soul. It's like right in their hand, and they're up close, right? I feel like it's more intimate, and even though it's a brutal happenings with the sword, of course, but there's an aspect of honor, especially around those times in the Tokaji era and all those times, the Meiji era. You know, even when guns started to come in, it was still the soldiers with the guns would have the utmost respect. They would admire the old samurais of old that was still lingering around back then. And if you guys ever seen Rurouni Kenshin, definitely check that out. That's like the most real reflection of what those times were like back then. Greetings. So my question is for mankind is, where did everything, I don't want to say even go wrong, but how did we, why did we shift to a point where there was obviously at a certain point, there must have been a prosperous point of just pure peace. Pure peace. Sure, you may have had scuffles here and there, obviously. Humans be humans, right? Some people get on each other's nerves at a certain point, right? That's human nature. But where was it so strong that it just echoed out into what we know as hate, what we know as racism, what we know as just more of that dualistic sickness, as we Taoists call it? Where did that all stem from? It stems from the mind, going back to the mind. All leads back to mind. Now, some may argue, some may say that we are not truly our thoughts, right? Thoughts come and go. So it's really, I think it's safe to say that our thoughts are truly not ours. But what we harmonize, what we stick with, what we gravitate towards, that's your responsibility. And the vehicle, this body, is your responsibility of what thoughts come in, what thoughts go out, what actions go out, all the way down to the breath. The starting point. The starting point of all this. The starting point of the mind itself. Now, at a certain point, if you talk to the most heightened, even down to the elders, I don't want to say even quantum challengers, but really, if you can go to a remote place and speak to elders of old, not even old, I don't want to say that, but there are certain stories they will tell you, and what I've been picking up with certain elders, that we are not even from here. So when we did come here, there was even a certain point where we didn't even start with food, any of that. We were just being. So at what point in consciousness did we gravitate, did we build such a festering energy? An energy that is compressed, less compassionate in a sense. Where did that fester from? Why? These are one of the biggest questions whenever I see people do channel readings and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, just go straight to the point. Like, why we end up here? This and that. And I actually had the privilege, I like to say privilege, because most of us don't live in these remote areas. Before even meeting Jen, I almost went to where the Natarians live in Africa, and I would have had a life out there too. And that would be like 3 miles west from the Dogon people. The Dogon people, the same people who knew where Series B was before Western scientists, who knew so many things before Western scientists came into the fold and start realizing or just remembering. That's what it really is. We're all remembering. That's all it is. We're all remembering. But when will we start to remember? When war, when destruction, dense destruction at least, and breaking the will and not having permission, going beyond outside permission and respect for another being to just end life like that because you want to. In a sense, in a way, it shows the level of, we can even tie this down to certain civilizations. I like, darn, I forgot the brother's name, but he was making a great point about certain civilizations, how they came to be, and even down to the pyramids. Yeah, he was right to a certain point. When the pyramids were active, by the way, they were just power plants. There was not many what we know as civilizations. It's only when the pyramids turned off, that's when all the pharaohs and greed mongering people start festering over there. And when they did that, there are certain things that even the priests, so you know, why certain Egyptians, I'll get pretty racial here, why certain Egyptians look down on certain African people and stuff, is because, let's even stem all the way to Ethiopia. Now, these priests that was supposed to advise the pharaohs at a certain point withheld certain information because they saw the pharaohs were not in their right mind. They were like, take off the gold over there. I want this over here. This is my place now. Blah, blah, blah. And that's when the priests left. And they lived happily ever after, peaceful in what we know as Ethiopia. And it's unfortunate of where Ethiopia is today because that place is rich in certain knowledge and an unharmonious way of being, right? When these pyramids were active, they were mainly for the whole planet, not just for one civilization. It was for the whole planet to make Earth more vibratory and resonantial and create a powerful environment for thriving of the human race. Remember, I truly trust that we are not from here, okay? And even goes down, like I was telling you with the guy, the blue guy, right? With certain Hindu cultures, how they depict Shiva as being blue and stuff like that. And then when you talk to certain physicists and stuff like that, well, if that was true, then when you talk to these physicists and some of these scientists, it really makes them think outside the box too. Because, well, if the pigmentation is blue, certain factors of oxygen and certain atmospheric laws would cause that blue to turn brown, and every single one will conclude to that if the blue people or Shiva, all those people were real, right? It's starting to make sense. And if you look at some of these drawings, what they had dread, they had wool hair. Okay, it just makes sense. Live. I'm open to anybody that wants to hop on here live, and she did not join. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, but if you want to hop on, you're more than welcome to. All right, here we go. Hello there.
Hi.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Do you want to add to the topic so far?
I just wanted to listen. I must have clicked the wrong button.
Okay, sister. Someone else wants to hop on, if you don't mind.
No, I don't.
All right, peace. I think it's the same girl. Let's see what happened. What happened here? We have another one. Greetings.
Much love, everybody. Hello, how's everybody doing today?
Electric brother, do you want to add to the topic?
Yeah, man. So I caught in at the beginning when you were talking about the whole aspect with the animals. So I have my little spirit animal right here, little Saphira, and just that you were talking about that innate aspect of how animals wouldn't they wouldn't harm the young. And I see that with her. She's 4 months, and when we go hiking in the woods, and she'll just totally not like anything. A little deer, like you said, a squirrel, a rabbit. She'll just stare and look at it. She won't go and attack it or and try to inflict pain on anybody. So this whole thing of what's going on in the world, and I'm a PE health teacher, so I was talking a little bit about this stuff in my health class today with my students, and it's just so sad. And this is how this world, and it's teaching these students like my sixth graders, and they're scared for their family and friends. And I had a girl that was crying in the class because her father is in the service, and
Mhm.
it's just so sad that all this stuff is going on, and it continues this cycle to our youth, and like here in America and around the world. So it's so sad. But I think that's where all of us in our own little unique little niche, where we can come together and try to spread this positivity and this good information to the world. So, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, that little person in your class, they're gonna become an older adult. I think it's
Right,
really important that, going back to the whole aspect of the mind, that we really look at mental health and growth within our own mental constructs to be as healthy as possible, because that's gonna feed the next person right next to you, one way or the other. All these, if you want to call it them, they, or people who control certain things, they have a life expectancy at a certain point, and some of them really don't even care about their health anyway. So this cycle will only continue to a certain extent, to a certain point, where we're going to have a mesh in consciousness that will be for the betterment of all versus a certain sector of people.
right. No, I agree, man. And that's where I think that's my purpose, man, is just as a middle school health teacher, it's just to try to make that impact to that the hardest years of, I think, our kids' lives is that middle school time where it's hard, and just all this other stuff that's going on. I think at least if I can do one thing is just I try to get them to learn about meditation, about the power of the breath. From over the past time that I've found you and found this community, I've been like improving that in myself, but just spending it to my students as well. And I just can't wait to see where else we as a whole can keep on taking the future, not just for ourselves, but for the younglings coming up and everybody else. So I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much, man. And it's a pleasure to finally be on here and spread a few words. I'm a little nervous, even though I'm a teacher. My heart starts pounding because I feel the energy speaking to you. Um, I don't know if this is a good spot to ask about it, but did you go over the the event you're having on Sunday? Because I'm in Georgia, but I'm going to be in Florida for a Spartan race in Jacksonville this weekend.
Oh, okay.
So
I
I didn't
didn't
know
go
how far
over.
that.
Yeah, I didn't go over
Yeah.
it, but it's this Sunday in Coral Gables.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll have to convince my fiance to head on down there, and hopefully we'll see you, man.
Yeah, I'd love to have you, and anyone
Sweet.
on here as well.
Cool, cool. Well, thank you so much, man. I won't take up the time anymore. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. Peace.
Peace.
And I want to give you guys a real life, down to earth example as well. You don't know who, you might be having a session with a senator's cousin's kid, and show them about mental health and stuff like that. You don't think that's going to ripple into the family? Look what happened in California. I think California, even though California is dealing what they're dealing, but you got to at least commend them, being one of the first few schools to implement mental health studies, so to speak, and have like, I think they had like an alarm, so to speak, and that'll be like the time for everyone to meditate. I don't know which school specifically, but hey, at least it's happening. And the backstory behind that is, there was it was the principal's kid that started doing yoga and stuff like that. And apparently, that family, the principals related to the mayor, and they had ties with the governor at that time. And then it rippled into what they have today, and all the way in New York, with certain schools doing that, having mental awareness day and stuff of that nature. So you don't know who, what, where. You might have certain interactions that might ripple into things that are way bigger than you. And going back to the whole thing that's happening now, who knows? Maybe someone might see what's happening now and they know of certain things like this. So why not even talk about it? I think this is real because people look at certain people like, hey, you're too positive thing. This isn't, how is this going to really affect this? How is that going to affect that? It does. Going back to the mind, it has a huge effect beyond our comprehension, honestly, at that point. So I'm just saying that to say that, hey, what if someone knows someone in their government and their kids, and whenever they're around them, they can speak certain things, and that can cause a generational release of trauma, so to speak, and that might have a huge impact on the government and country itself at that point. Huge. Huge. So I definitely wanted to share that realism part of our society, what we live in. So that's why it's so important, if you can, always have a conversation and grow within the conversation where mutually, energetically, you both are growing, because that's going to leave bigger impacts than you can ever imagine. And it really does. Planting seeds of truth. Indeed. Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for the badge love. Thank you, PE Spartan. Thank you for the badge love, brother. Thank you for hopping on. If anybody else wants to hop on and share what they're feeling right now, you're more than welcome to. So many different ways of giving service. Doesn't have to be in the military. You don't have to be a teacher. Just your presence of being gives service. It really does. And I just want everyone to know that, going beyond labels, because we live in a label-filled society, and that is part of the dualistic energetic resonance, if you will, that causes certain happenings to happen. And the day when at least I think a great starting point will at least be like human, just race human, take off, hey, because it keeps on asking those questions when you go into government offices, right? Are you black? Are you black this race? Are you white? Are you this? Are you Asian Pacific? Are you that? Are you this? The day when we see all those ballots go, like at least no race at all, I think that's a great start. That's a practical start as well, honestly, because you have Africans, you have melanated people like all over the globe, right? At that point, you have Asians in Ukraine, you have Asians in Russia, you have Asians in Jamaica. Do you guys even know that? You have Indians in Jamaica as well, by the way. So the day when we finally tear that wall down, we always look at walls, oh, this border, this, that border, that. What about the border of certain human constructs of consciousness? When are we going to tear down those borders? That's the conversations we should be having at these global spaces, at ambassador tables and stuff like that. Shoot, when are we going to see at least one of those ambassadors or one of those UN officials be like, hey, everyone, I want to take this moment of silence. Just everyone be quiet for a minute, take this moment of silence, and then you start hearing random bowls of healing just emanating the UN space and stuff like that. Shout out the Texas fam that went to meditate in a government official building. You know how powerful that is? Because when you go into buildings like that, it's like it's like seeing I don't know, it's like seeing certain authoritarian figures pass by and you feel a certain way, right? And shifting, bringing that type of energy in a government building, powerful. It's gonna send ripples into those officials that have certain offices and play certain roles. Shoot, might put a scalar sticker somewhere underneath, certain tables and stuff like that. So, I'm even thinking of when we travel to Texas, we're gonna turn on the scalers in the back of the car. It's gonna because I'm going to Egypt and it's gonna be remote. I feel like that is a nice domino effect, if you will, to finally get me. I might just have a dedicated scaler just for the car, just walking around, driving around and blasting healing frequencies versus what they're doing in Australia. Obviously, that they're blasting disharmonious frequencies. And since they're starting to do that and they're public with it, it's time. It's time we combat all that. It's time we set certain walls and constrictions that we don't identify with in the sense of human growth and potential. It's time. If someone wants to hop on here live. Hello there.
Brother. How have you been?
I'm electric, and you? Do you want to add to the topic, please?
Yes, I am. I do. Well, I live in Central America, in Costa Rica, and it's really curious when you start reading our own history. That is human history. You find a lot of. I personally trust that in almost every country this must be, as well as I have found here in Costa Rica. Before the Spaniards came and everything, we were a lot of people here, like a lot. I have some really cool history books, written by some really, really cool people, and I think that I trust that if everyone starts like doing their own research about their own countries or the land that they are inhabiting, that perspective of who they are is gonna start to have some more power, because we have these mental barriers or mental, I don't know how to say, like mental blockages to think that we're less than the ones that conquered this country, or we are less prepared. This saying that there is a first world or second world or third world countries and all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting that even the history is not well passed on the children. These books that I have told you about, I actually can show you one. Yeah. For example, for all my Central American friends, that if you're looking, this book, History of Costa Rica, written by a doctor in history, shows that we were at least 1 million when the Spanish people came here. And in Nicaragua, they were also 1 million. And from that on, so we were a lot of people living in harmony.
Yeah.
That was a lot of people eating well. There was a lot of people being educated. It was a lot of people living in peace, So it's really interesting that some information that is in this kind of books is not part of the education system, at least here in Costa Rica. That Costa Rica governments are like super proud that we have like a super high education rate compared to other Latin American countries and everything. That I don't even like to talk to say that we're Latin American. We're just American. Okay.
Or we're just human, right?
We're just human. Yeah, exactly.
And
starting
I
from
feel like the the indigenous people that lived on these lands, I feel like that was their mindset, even down to the Moors living here before Columbus and those people came over. That was their mindset. That was their way of living. They lived more with nature in that sense as well, especially the Moors, and utilizing crystals and stuff like that. Um, but it was until those conquerors, or whatever you want to call them, or explorers, so to speak. I feel like those people, now talking to you and the history, what you displayed there, I feel like that type of energy just came from the aspect of just ego, be like, hey, no one's really going around doing this, so why not put it like this and just say that we did this, and while at it, let's construct our own on these lands versus just harmonizing with them and growing even more. Why didn't I feel like it also probably came in the sense of jealousy as well, for sure. Definitely the sense of jealousy. I get that from even
yeah,
specifically, um, not just the Moorish places, but just all over in terms of wealth in wealth, not just in knowledge, but in the constructs. And when they went to these places, they see how different they live, and probably even more happy and healthier looking as well, right? And maybe they felt like psychologically, some of them who tried to conquer some of these places, they probably felt left behind in a sense. And I feel like that type of jealousy that festered produced, what we know as quote unquote history, so to speak.
yeah, that's really interesting. That way of thinking about it, about jealousy, is really interesting. I like to think about the, like, the parasitic side of it also, because yeah, like the parasitic influence on the way of thinking, because it was like extremely violent, the parasitic way of doing things, when um, people on that time were conquered by these other humans. Because in the end, we're all humans. There must have been at least an amount of compassion in some of the people that were coming in the boats from Europe and everything. And why these people actually do the harm, and why, I don't know, like the Irish thing, like the not the Irish. Um, I'm trying to remember the name, but there is some evidence that in Mexico and other places, some European also came before. So why they didn't rip everything apart like the Spaniards? That's really interesting to think about. In some part, yeah, that's really interesting. In some parts of Mexico, Puebla and stuff, they talk about how these gods that came in boats taught them how to cultivate their lands in some ways to better themselves, and why those kind of guys did it, and why these other European parasites do their parasitic thing. That's really interesting to think about. Yeah, that's really interesting to
I like
think about.
how you brought up the word parasites, because who knows, what if what if they were eating certain things and they didn't know how to take care of themselves, in a sense, to cause that parasitic construction of thought, going back to the thought all over again, right? Yeah, because that's gonna cause parasitic behaviors as well. Like attracts like, right? Let me go on this land and leech.
Exactly.
Leech
Exactly.
leech
Yeah.
all that from everyone and make them be a certain way and stuff of that nature, because I want them to.
Yeah, I have had some interesting conversations about this because the Vikings were the ones that I were the word that I was looking for.
Oh yeah, the Vikings. Yeah.
Because they have a recorded use of medicinal mushrooms like the Amanita muscaria history and Santa Claus and everything.
Right.
How about if the use of these medicines affected their microbiome and they were less there was less of a field for some fucked up parasites to um, thrive in them. That's really interesting to think about it. I have this conversation with a North American doctor that is living here in Costa Rica that works with these medicines. That how this type of usage of these medicines can affect the microbiome on the mid and long term, and how that can be measured, or how can that translate on the effect of the microbiome on the mind, because it's always connected, right? Like
It's a network.
information is flowing both ways at every single time, so there must be an influence. So that is really interesting to think about it also. Yeah, that's really interesting to think about it. Yeah, if there's anyone that lives in Central America and wherever in the world that is watching this, look at the history, man. Look at the history of the place that you're inhabiting. And yeah, I think that maybe I have found some really nice surprises. Here in Costa Rica, we're elongate heads. And no one talks about it, and not one single kid in school knows about it. I talked about this with a history teacher like a couple of months ago, and he was like, "Man, where did you get the information? I have the books right over there." I got them at a museum that were like on the greatest sales of museum books, and yeah, the information is there, So yeah, it's really interesting because if here in Costa Rica we're in elongate head people that were in these power positions and everything, what else could have been here? And in all these beautiful, gorgeous, nature thriving places around, where food grows wherever you plant it, and it's sunny all year long, and man, so much. Yeah, I think that also.
Yeah, this type of awareness, though, like, acknowledging all that abundance and peace a person or civilization had, what causes them to just want more? Like, what more do you need at that point, right? Like, what more? Why the sense of greed? Like, why? What more do you need? What more? Why complicate? Why it's the denseness. It always goes back to the density. How dense your gut is also how dense your life is, because it's like there's an inner connection back and forth happening here, right? There's an interconnection happening. The external reflecting the internal, going back and forth, playing that game, that dance.
Yeah, and that contrast that you talk about a lot. I don't know if that can, in a really violent human or really parasitic human, can cause like grief or like envy, because this is a type of balance that doesn't serve me, and I have to destroy it. So I think about that too, and I think that also the information and the way of living is in the air, you know, like it literally, literal, on a little way, it's in the air. Like the frequencies are in the air, like the it
Like I was saying earlier with the pyramids, I keep forgetting his name, but like I was saying earlier, how this gentleman was talking about how certain civilizations hold some dark secrets in a sense, all the way down to the pyramids, right? And to a certain extent, that's true. But there was a certain extent where pyramids are all over the world being active. They had an active role in terms of harmonizing with Earth. And I always wonder why, how we either you want to call it dumbed ourselves down to certain technologies that is not best for the human being. And I always go back to the spiritual technology. That's where it starts from. Always going back to mind, right? If the spiritual mind is so heightened to a certain point of resonance and harmonizing with Earth, healing with Earth, and stuff like that, then you're going to create technologies that is more organic, and that's what even the pyramids themselves. It's organic technology. It's not like certain constructs we have today in the cities. That is literally organic technology to the point where you go touch it and you're even more charged up, harmonizing with all the trees around you. You know, that type of technology is organic. That's what we made in certain times versus today where you can say, I feel like the spiritual in a sense got corrupted somehow, some way, and then that's what led to more parasitic behaviors, so to speak.
Yeah, I resonate with that. And but how do you think that? Well, I don't know if the corporeal part can be like brought apart from the spiritual part of
Oh no, they're
humans.
one and the same. They're one and the same. Don't get me wrong. They're one and the same.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned it, like the parasitic side of things, because who knows what can technology do on the, I don't know, like nanotechnology, like nanotechnology stuff and everything.
You know, the other thing, we should also look at parasites in general as technology, because that's what they are. Man, I got like 2 minutes left, but that's what they are. They're literally technology. It's a type of technology that festers on your food or whatever. You eat it, and it spreads information inside your DNA to cause disharmonious resonance in the body, to then lead to dis-ease. And when you're feeling dis-ease, then you want to take it out on someone versus going internally, cleansing mentally, spiritually, physically, all that stuff. And they take it out in other means.
Yeah, I like to think about how the effect of parasites brought to the indigenous humans could have affected also. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I feel like honestly, when Eve ate the apple, that's when everything just went downhill. when Eve took that first bite, when we weren't, we were fine by ourselves without any external needs or necessities, that's when everything went downhill. Because you talk to so many different quantum channelers, if you want to call them, they always say in the beginning, yeah, we didn't really need any of that, any external, not even breath at a certain point we didn't need. So that's why I like to say the breath is also the extension of our soul or spirit in a sense.
Yes, it is. I trust that. I trust that.
Well, thank you, brother, for hopping on here. I got like 10 seconds. It might even pop out, but thank you all for sharing the breath. Peace.
Peace, brother.